Those of you who got an invite, welcome to Nerd Prom.
No matter where in the world you are, we're all Nerds International. With the hyphen. Nerds International proudly presents.
We want to take you on a quest for knowledge. One that will take us from ancient medieval fantasy across the far reaches of space to the distant future. To many savage worlds.
Welcome to the Wild Eye Podcast, episode 51. This is a podcast dedicated to Pinnacle Entertainment Savage Worlds, aimed at beginners and veterans alike. What's going on there, Mad Station Eric? No sleeves Lamoureux? It's new and exciting.
Wearing sleeves today. Still cold out. It's like spring won't show up. But yeah, I'm doing all right. I'm excited about this show. Excited to have you and Harrison back on the show after spending a night in jail that time. That's why you guys can be there. But it's good to have you back.
No, there were no charges made, and nothing was ever proved. I want to get that out in the open right now.
I just want to say it was a very romantic evening.
Yes, there was that too. Good.
Don't deny it, man. Just
nice awkward start there to the podcast. Classic. And of course, we've got a very special guest on today. It is, of course, all the way from Germany, Manuel Sams. Say hello, Manuel.
I was going to do a really bad German accent then. No, hello.
Sorry, I am joking. It is Paris Conte from Australia. So Paris finally decided to man up, speak to me in person. Not as afraid of me as you were before. Oh, I dodged you. You
dodged me.
Come on.
You dodged me.
The episodes where I wasn't on it, you finally decide to come on. I think somebody else is the scaredy cat here. Paris.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. So this is, I know that England, holds a bit of a grudge because, we just rock at sports and pretty much everything else and constantly kick your country's ass at, everything.
Mm-hmm.
So
mainly crime.
Including crime, yeah. Yep. Whatever it is, we'll beat you at it. Doesn't matter what it is.
All right, Paris.
Especially drinking.
I see how this is going to be.
It is.
So Eric,
Manuel couldn't make it today. It's his birthday, and he's away in a cabin with his fake friends or something. So he can't. His internet's not stable enough. Instead of being with his real friends, he's with fake friends.
Cardboard cutouts.
Cabin in the Woods on your birthday. Isn't that how horror movies start?
Yes.
Yeah.
We sincerely hope Manuel doesn't die.
So is your official title guest, or should we just call you replacement? Happy birthday, Manuel. You're no longer on the show. we got you something for your birthday. Free time.
Yeah, happy birthday, Manuel.
Says the guy that just took your job.
Yeah.
Take that.
All right. What are we doing today, Lam? What's happening?
Your girlfriend, I got your job.
Girlfriend too. Wow.
He's parking space that works.
Yeah.
Hey, man.
we got a bunch of feedback from the previous episodes. The one about what makes Savage Worlds unique, and I know Eli Kurtz wrote a really good article about that, and we'll have that in the show notes. Highlights a few points, few differences from what we talked about, but really interesting. Also, Sergio Benito, his article in Spanish, but you can use Google Translate. And he brings up a few good points in there. Mainly that he wishes that in the next book, the next version, all the rules are in the same place. Sometimes you find rules like for damage in 4 different places in the book, and that makes it kind of hard to follow. So there's some good points in there. Also going to be in the show notes, so you can check it out yourself. The Accursed review that we did, Harrison and I, the last episode, bonus episode, got some feedback from John Dunn. He says that since I bought from Amazon, my purchase was the hardcover standard heavyweight version. It was made through Ingram Print on Demand, which is the same service that DriveThru RPG uses, where it's $40 on DriveThru. The same book I got for $34, $35 on Amazon. So that's why, the quality of the pictures, the saturation wasn't as good as a premium heavyweight. There's also, we say the name of the game line with 3 syllables. It sounds like accursed, or maybe accursed.
Accursed.
Accursed, so it's not accursed. But we'll never correct a paying customer on that point. Smart move.
I find it funny that even he's, commenting on how your English is. What a jerk.
No, I pronounced it right throughout the show. Did it right? For once?
Yeah, I think it was me that got it wrong at one point.
See?
Still a jerk, though.
Okay. So he's correcting the English guy at his English. That's awesome.
Yeah, so John, never message us again.
Wow, so welcoming. And Adamek Peter. Yeah, Adamek Peter says, I agree with the part where you say getting forward in the campaign shouldn't rely on a dice roll. But 50 fathoms as this too, if you want to get to, and then we'll probably bleep that out, the Tress of the Red, you need to make a series of successful and hard tests. What do you think about that?
Uh-oh.
Well, I think it's quite different. And it's one thing to hide the plot under a one notice roll for information that should be handed out to the players, whereas what you're comparing it to right now is it's not information, it's a challenge. It's like battling someone. That's part of.
You do need to have some challenges in there. Of course, the plot is going to be behind some stuff, but all the point was the only point Eric was making was that to have the plot not move on because you don't find the one item behind one notice roll. But of course you need to have things like actual events happening, and those will require rolls.
So first of all, Atomic, don't you ever talk trash about 50 fathoms?
Yeah,
you scumbag! How dare you? Second of all, talking about sort of 2 different things. So if you're going into a dungeon and there's a door in front of you, and the only way to get through this magically enhanced locked up door is 1 key, and you fail a notice check to find the key to get through the door, your game is over. Unlike the Teresa the Red section of it, you go down the gullet, you make a series of tests to navigate your ship through this rocky terrain, these rapids and stuff before you get into the whirlpool area. And then there's multiple ways to get to Teresa the Red. This is where it gets different. Sure, you have to make a series of successful tests to get to where you want to go, or you could just be a mage and fly up there. You know what I mean? Like there's more than one way to do it. If you fail, there's another way. Unlike what Eric was saying, like if you fail, it's a hard stop. There's no way to get through this door without the key. To get to the other route that you're describing there's multiple ways to get there. So if you fail one way, you can always succeed another. I think is kind of the difference.
Yeah. So don't ever message again.
All right, and yes, some news. And that's where we have the little news jingle.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the news. The news is incoming. Prepare yourself for the news. News! And some announcements about the Nerds International Network and the Wild Die Podcast.
So, last year we had the guys from Yellow Piece Game come talk about Buccaneer, the new setting, their Kickstarter. But now the book is out. I received my PDF copy a while back, but Gary got his beautiful book, so it's out. You can go buy it.
Gary, who's that written by?
Hold on a second. My book's here somewhere. Oh, let me get it. Oh, I shouldn't have rotated around. I need to grease my chair up. Sorry about that. But it is written by Wang Fuchs Landauer.
Yeah. Just checking.
Buccaneer through high water. Nice looking book, man. I got to tell you.
No, I mean no, because I knew the first and the last names that wrote it, but who's the middle one?
Oh, that's Chris Fuchs.
Right. Okay. Cool. Just checking.
We need to grow up.
What, Eric? No. The thing is, in this industry, I feel like a lot of writers don't get the respect they deserve, and I think who was it again, Gary?
Chris Fuchs
should get more respect, and he should be spotlighted because he's a fantastic writer, and this is a great book. That's all.
Free. Check out my sweet coins that I got with my sesh too. Part of the Kickstarter deal.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah, they get some solid weight to them. If somebody pisses you off, you can throw them at them at the game table and actually do some damage. Unlike these little plastic poker chips. So yeah.
Very good.
Cool.
Well done, Chris Fuchs. Good stuff.
Here's my segue to this show. A Kickstarter, Secret Agents of Cross. Secret Agents of Cross is a new tabletop role-playing game created using the Savage Worlds system. You will play secret agents that work for Cross, a clandestine spy agency also known as the Catholic Response Organization to Strategize and Strike. Cross was created by Rogue Cardinal James MacDonald to take the Pope's prayers and convert them into actions. He and his command staff create missions to protect the flock from evil using cutting-edge technology coupled with saintly magic honed over 2,000 years of history. So this is going on Kickstarter June 1st. So get excited, folks. So speaking of Kickstarters, today we're going to discuss Savage Worlds Kickstarters because a couple months back, what's up, Gary?
Eric, I didn't mean to interrupt there, but it's called the Secret Agents of Cross.
Yeah.
So like their code name would be SAC.
Yes, Gary. That's right.
You could be a member of
Sacrament. As in the sacrament.
Yeah, just, your name's not Harry.
Wow. We've hit a new low, folks.
Can we just continue the episode? Right, so what are we talking about today on Take It to the Edge, Eric?
Savage Worlds Kickstarters. A couple months ago, there was quite a few Kickstarters. I think it was February or March. We had like 8 or 10 of them again. I know back in October, I counted like 12 of them. And Manuel and I had this reaction of like, really? Another Kickstarter? And we thought it'd be a good topic. I put it out there on social media to ask people if they thought there were too many Savage Worlds Kickstarters and what makes them pull the trigger on backing a project. So we got, exploded. We got a bunch of comments, and this is going to direct the show. Basically, we're gonna look at those and comment and see if there are too many Savage Worlds Kickstarters. So, with that said, let's take it to the edge.
Yeah. You're listening to the Wild Die Podcast. 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 Listen 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 to the Wild Die Podcast.
Not another Kickstarter. Time to take on my Grognar voice. Basic expert.
Sounds like your
I'm in jail.
It sounds like your I'm in jail voice.
Give me my little blue pill. Let's play some D&D. Just old school.
This is so
Don't
terrible.
change anything.
This is so bad. What is this?
Is there something about Harrison and Gary that makes you act like this? Because you didn't do this the other day.
You're so mature. Oh man. Okay, so what are we talking about today, Eric? Not another Kickstarter. So go. Don't do the Grognar thing. I've cut that out.
No. Can't do that
So
voice.
bad. It's so bad. I'm gonna play some D&D. Give me the blue pill.
Yeah, back in the day. All right. So the two comments here from Ronnie Walton and John Pyrich. Well, Ronnie says the most important factor for me is, do I have any money? And John says, I don't think that there are too many overall. Too many for my wallet. Sadly, yes. I look for either an original setting that I want to run, or that it has some aspect that I want to crib for another game. So yeah, money. That's a big factor for a lot of people. We were just discussing this before the show. You've got Gary that basically backs any Savage Worlds Kickstarter. Paris, I think he slowed down a little bit, but he used to back all of them too. Me, I'm a little bit in the middle. I'm picky, and Harrison has just backed his second one, I think. So he's probably the one that will say it's about money, basically, right?
It's all about the cash money. I'm very broke most of the time because I've got to give money to my 6 kids, with my 7 different women. But the thing is my point is that because I have very little money, that's all it comes down to for me. Well, there's obviously loads of other factors, but one of the things is that, yeah, if a Kickstarter's gonna rinse my wallet, then that's it. You can take a hike. But then Flash Gordon was bloody expensive, but it looked awesome, so I had to get it.
So yeah, you, Gary, it's not about the money, right?
No, it's not about the money. I'm not rich by any means. I just work a lot. So fortunately, I have extra money. I just want to say this is probably going to generate a lot of heat. And I, now that I think about it, I probably shouldn't even say it. But if you don't have enough money to buy a Kickstarter, you shouldn't be playing role-playing games. You should be like collecting bottles on the side of the road or something like that, because they're really not that expensive, right? I mean, it's $20. That probably
Unless
isn't.
you live in Australia.
Well, yeah, and then you got to pay for shipping stuff like that. So maybe it's just my ignorance, but
No,
you know what I mean? It's like
it's the same thing in the UK. There are loads that don't ship to the UK, and as a result, you like the shipping means that they're really not worth my while. But then there's some that where you get like a print-on-demand code, and those are the ones I might be more likely to back.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say back them all, but I mean, yeah, I don't know. Money hasn't been an issue for me since I was 16. I started delivering pizzas. I always had a couple $100 kicking around, which anyways, like I said, it's probably just me
drug
ignorance because I don't know everybody's situation, but and shipping, I don't have to ship it over a friggin' a massive body of water, but yeah, I don't know. You're asking the wrong guy.
Shipping is so expensive in Australia because the post fighters they have to the amount of things they have to dodge just to deliver a package. They demand a ludicrous wage.
The whole wildlife over there. I mean, they have to be armed and
people like Paris trying to touch him.
Whoa! I've been really good, but he's come out firing. Okay.
Sorry,
fine.
I'm sorry.
All right. Also, John Steve, he says, price, do I feel I would ever use or run it? Also, how far does it stray from the deluxe rules? Rifts was a bridge too far for me. Flash Gordon wasn't, and it had the preview of changes to come also. So, yeah, I don't think that's a very popular assessment there, the fact that changing the rules too much, but yeah, I did see it a little bit. Is that a concern for you guys? Because I mean, it has to be difficult to tell, right? Just from a Kickstarter blurb, how much of the rules are going to change in the end. It's hard to tell.
Yeah, I got to be honest. I only backed Flash Gordon because I wanted to see what the rule changes were going to be. That's the whole reason I backed the PDF one.
PDF on that deal. It's a weird thing to say, John Steve, Mr. Awesome XCOM running John Steve, who I don't really want to speak poorly of, but that for me is just a weird way to go about it, and I'll sort of explain myself. So when I'm like, when we talk about do I have money for a setting, most Kickstarters aren't that much. You can get them for $10-12 for a PDF. You don't have to back the book, so it's not like you're talking a huge amount of money. But when the big ones come out that can be $80, that give you the dice, the bennies, the whole nine, I could see that being a touch too far. But this is what made me think of it, is like John Steve was like, I didn't want to back Rifts because it was a bridge too far. But Rifts is a universal setting. You can bring any characters from any game into that. Like you could get so much out of Rifts, whereas Flash Gordon, I mean, I'm just going to say you're only getting Flash Gordon out of Flash Gordon. Even though there's a lot of Flash Gordon, with Rifts, you could literally get anything out of Rifts. You could bring in Deadlands. You could bring in 50 Fathoms because of the whole portal system.
But Gary, we just played Kings of Convenience, and we did that with Harrison, and we didn't need Savage Rifts, right, to bring characters from every universe. So
yeah,
I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. Like in Rifts, it's just a weird thing for me. Because Rifts is like Flash Gordon's Flash Gordon. It's a one-shot setting, whereas Rifts is anything you want it to be.
The only point that John Steve is making is that he will not tend to back Kickstarters that stray too much from the original rules, and Rifts has a lot of new rules in it. And I think I understand that to an extent, because I don't necessarily, when I see a new setting on Kickstarter, if there's a lot of setting rules and a lot of changes, I don't necessarily want to back something like that, because I don't like to have to sit down and teach all of my players at the table a bunch of new stuff just to play a new setting. If we're playing Savage Worlds, we're going to play Savage Worlds. And as Eric rightfully mentioned, it can be quite hard to tell sometimes from a Kickstarter. And so what I like is sometimes on certain Kickstarters, they'll have a download of like a little test drive of the rules to convince you, hey, maybe you should back this. This is a cool thing that you can have. For example, the Savage Tokusatsu, that Japanese-inspired one that I backed, I don't know if it was actually available on their webpage, but he sent me a test drive of the rules, which I saw it and was like, okay, cool. They haven't made too many changes, and it's going to be awesome, so I backed it based on that. But I think maybe if a lot of Kickstarters aren't doing it, they should offer that on their page, just so that you can get a picture as to whether or not they are going to make changes or not, because I think that is a deal breaker for a lot of people.
Yeah, I agree with that. The ability to, the more that you know about the product that you're backing, certainly helps. One thing I'd like to say though about Kickstarters is don't listen to Gary, because if you live anywhere outside of America, Kickstarters for the most part cost just a lot of money. And all these countries, whether it's England, Australia, whatever, they have distribution centers, man. Just use them. You can use them. I don't know how much of a cost there is, but just ship it all to this one group that'll distribute. You bring the shipping down, you'll get so many more foreign backers. Because I'm from a Kickstarter junkie, which I am. The amount of Kickstarters I've wanted to back and then looked at the pricing, which is as much, if not more, than the actual thing you're kickstarting. That's very prohibitive. That rant over.
100%. 100%.
That's why. Yeah, that's why you usually go just PDF, right?
Yeah. It's a big part of why I only go PDF for most things. There's a lot of ones I wanted to back. The books and the bennies and the dice and all that sort of stuff. But it's just way too cost prohibitive. The last one I did was the Monster Hunter International for Savage Worlds. Still waiting for that one to come. Hopefully it'll be out soon. But 95% of the stuff I get is all PDF, just because it's just way too cost prohibitive to get here.
That's a shipping issue, not a Kickstarter issue. First of all, and second of all, I agree 100% with what you said. Don't listen to me.
And it is a Kickstarter issue because, like, there are one of the Kickstarters I backed. As a board game, is Thunderstone Quest, man. And the box, I kid you not, it weighs, I don't know, it weighs as much as a Volkswagen. But because they did the distribution through Australia, so they ship it to one point, and then that point then distributes it, right? The shipping costs, can bugger all. And yet it was this massive box. Like, if you shipped it from the States, it would probably cost me like $200 just in shipping costs, like $200 US. Yes, I've not seen yet a book or people that are producing books use that sort of service. And I think if they would get so many more people.
Pinnacle does it now. They usually have the sign for Europe and Australia friendly. That's how you can tell. They'll do that.
Richard Spainhour. I think his name is Spinauer. I like that. It's actually kind of neat. Spinauer. What's up, Spinauer? Hey, what's going on, hoser? Number one, no. As a potential backer, I think the more the merrier. 2, the most important factor is, do I think this Kickstarter will fund and deliver? I'm looking for the Kickstarter fundamentals. How many Kickstarter projects has the lead backed? 0 is a down check. How many has he delivered? First created is a down check. Where they delivered on time. More than a month late is a down check. Wow, this guy's got some serious stiff rules, man. Is the first draft already complete? No guarantees, I won't back. Does the project plan / timeline make sense? If it's too short, I'm suspicious, but if it's longer than 6 months, I don't want my pledge money tied up that long. Did I project the lead do a good job of identifying and mitigating risks? Wow, I have never put this much thought into anything in my entire life, let alone for Kickstarter.
If there's anyone who sent in a question today that is possibly a serial killer, it's this guy.
Or a detective, one of the two. I feel like he has a board on the wall that you see in those detective movies with faces on the wall and strings tied to each location.
Oh my God.
What's I don't even know where to start with that one. I do like the
3. There's more to it. 3.
Oh God, wow. There's more.
Oh, wait a second. There is more. It just was on the other page. 3. The second most important factor is, how many changes to the Savage Worlds core rules does this author think are necessary? Every major rule change, as opposed to new edges and hindrances, setting rules, etc., which are fine, is a down check for me. I like Savage Worlds a lot. If you think you're better rules mechanic than Shane Hensley or Clint Black, I probably don't believe you. I agree with that one, too. I'm just looking at you, Eric Lamoureux. I think you're better than everybody.
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess it shows that some people, they just think something looks cool and they'll just click and pledge, and some people really put a lot of thought into it, obviously.
If I'm being honest, when I have a look at a Kickstarter page, I don't necessarily maybe give it quite as much thought and would be able to vocalize it like this. But I do go in and look in quite extraneous detail at the Kickstarter page, similarly to how he would. because of tying up cash, and sometimes a Kickstarter can feel like a gamble if there's not that much detail on the page. That's part of the reason why I think some people go into such detail, you know, and maybe that's why this detective Spinor is doing all of this stuff, you know.
Yeah, look, I think he makes some valid points. I don't go into anywhere near as much detail as he does, though. But I think when you look at a Kickstarter page for a particular project, you can tell usually by the layout of the way they presented the information when they're trying to sell it to you, how much art's involved. You get a feel for the professionalism of the layout, or that at least they know what they're doing. Some of them look quite haphazard, and the drawings are done by their kids with crayons or whatever the case may be. But I've got to stop saying that. I did that a lot in the last podcast, so bleep out every time I say whatever the case may be, for the love of God, please. So I don't think I've ever looked at whether they've backed anything before, or whether they've had other projects. I don't even look at how long it takes to come. But if I see on that page that the product first of all interests me, because there's a lot of Savage Worlds books that come out that I guess the genre doesn't do it for me. But if I see that the production of the Kickstarter page, they're really selling me. They've done their homework marketing wise. I don't think twice. I just click.
But we got one in from Charles White as well, he's the author of Olympus Inc. Is that right?
Yeah. Before you go to Charles White, I want to throw my 2 cents in the ring. I put about as much effort into a Kickstarter as I do putting my underwear on in the morning. Looks clean, smells clean, it goes on. That's it. That's how I determine my Kickstarters and my underwear. Just saying. Charles White, Kickstarter.
Yes, just a question, like, Gary. How many times has your underwear not fulfilled its pledge?
About 98% of the time.
way more than my actual Kickstarters have not funded. I'm gonna go check and see right now. You guys do Charles White. I'll be right back.
Yeah, so Charles White comes in, author of Olympus Inc., and he says, Kickstarter is vital to us little guys. We need the money because good art and layout isn't cheap. We want to produce great quality products. Also, this is a great way to see if the community actually wants the product. If it is funded, then great. If not, then perhaps there is no need to put additional funds into the project unless it is a passion project. Smiley face. What do you think of that, guys?
True. I mean, publishing stuff, I know what these things cost, a setting, how much it costs, versus how much you can expect to make out of it in 1 or 2 years. And but when you look at between $3,000 and $4,000 for a setting, a Savage Worlds setting, it's basically the minimum that you can work with, really, to get layout, artwork, editing, and if you're not writing it yourself, then $3,000 or $4,000 isn't enough. So you look at, usually Savage Worlds go around $5,000 for funding goal. The good ones will go to $10,000 for the licensees. Pinnacle, of course, will reach in the $30,000, $50,000, and Sean Patrick Fannin with Freedom Squadron not long ago. I don't know how much he reached, but I think it was close to $30,000 too. Frozen Skies artwork was
$2,500.
The goal, yeah, they fund it too. So, you need. It's a great platform for that, because otherwise, I mean, when you look at certain settings and you see that artwork isn't really all that great, or there aren't that many pieces, or the layout isn't done professionally, that means that that publisher probably wrote, illustrated, did the layout all by himself, sometimes using stock art and that kind of thing. So it's just how much it costs. It's expensive.
So I've backed 48 Kickstarters, and I'm only having issues with one. And it's actually very sad because that one is the Evil Dead board game. And it's been like 2 or 3 years in the making. And I think there might be some issues with it, although he just recently posted something. But I backed that so long ago that I almost kind of forgot about it. So I would say it was the direct inverse of how many successful times I find clean underwear. About 1 out of every 48.
Good to know.
All right, Dylan Brooks. The only thing I care about is the property involved. I didn't back Pinnacle's Rifts, Goon, Fear Agent, or Flash Gordon Kickstarter because I don't care about the properties at all. I'm not going to back Lankmar for the same reason.
Jesus,
yeah, which
tell us how you really feel.
Yeah, but that brings me to the point that when I put this out there for people to comment on it, it was the same day that Pinnacle announced there's going to be a Lankmar Kickstarter in May, so it made me look like the bad guy there once again. But it was a coincidence. Totally sorry. So yeah, does that mean that Pinnacle will basically put out nothing I care about for a year plus? Yeah, probably. Does that matter much to me? Nah. There are plenty of other games and licensee settings out there. I think it's worth considering if Pinnacle's use of Kickstarter is sort of against the idea of the platform. After all, for them, it's mostly a way to avoid risk, and they're an established company in the RPG space. Is it fair of them to basically use Kickstarter as a way to determine how big a print run to make for their games and pre-sell everything so they know how big of a budget they have? I'm not sure on this either way. It's clearly how RPG companies have gone, and the players seem to be following. But it always bothered me a bit as something that Kickstarter wasn't really intended for. I mean, that's a good point, and I had that knee-jerk reaction before too, where why do they need to use Kickstarter? Their book is ready, it's made. But that's another point too. The little guys will go with just a digital product and sometimes codes for print on demand through RPG, which is great for small publishers. Whereas, Pinnacle, they had the money up front to produce that book, but they make their money with the print runs, and offset printers aren't cheap either. And usually, I think they use a printer in China, so they have to get all these books back and then distribute them. So they need the money up front to know how big of a print run they're going to need. And, it's Kickstarter is to fund a project, and part of their project is to fund a print run. So I got no problem with it now.
And the thing is,
I'm fine with it.
Despite the fact that that Pinnacle is a relatively big company, unless you're Wizards of the Coast, it still makes financial sense to be doing this stuff on Kickstarter, because they're not exactly, the biggest corporation on the planet. Do you know what I mean?
It's not Hasbro. It's not.
It's not what?
Kaito.
It's not who?
Hasbro.
But you see,
I thought you said Hasbro.
Shane Hensley recently came to England. I don't know if you guys noticed, and we met up, and I've seen him, man, and the clothes that he's wearing nothing more than a sack, just a Hessian sack.
He's a secret agent of Cross, dude.
Exactly. And so he's got to do it via Kickstarter, and if you see him, chuck him a few bucks, because he's on hard times.
Listen,
and also, people forget that Kickstarter always takes a fee out of that money. So, but when you go through that, there's some money that will just go straight to Kickstarter. That if you just did a pre-order, you wouldn't have to pay that. But it's great exposure. Also, it's a marketing tool.
From my perspective, I have people in the publishing world, not gaming, but like novels and stuff, and I have a collection of role-playing games from companies that no longer exist, because they went out, they did a print run on a game that they thought everyone would be really excited about, and it ended up killing their company because they'd invested so much in it. So I would rather see Pinnacle do a Kickstarter know that there's a know that there's a demand for it out there, not risk their company, and then possibly risk Savage Worlds, if you know what I mean. Like, because if they fold, then Savage Worlds goes to someone else, then maybe the floor it changes, or it never comes back out. They never sell the rights. So I'm GW, all those games in the past, FASA, they're all gone. And I'd hate to see that happen to Pinnacle. So no, I'm right on board with them using Kickstarter. That's fine.
It's like you guys are looking at this, or it's being looked at like it's an ethical question. Like this big company is rolling in using this platform, and somehow that's unethical. Because I could see it being unethical in the sense that maybe they're taking away something that a smaller company, they're taking a bite out of the apple that they don't need. But that's not how the platform works. Kickstarter can use, or Pinnacle can use Kickstarter in the same way that Eric could if he wanted to kickstart Wise Guys. Kickstarter, Peg Inc. using Kickstarter doesn't affect Eric using Kickstarter. It's not like the big guys abusing the system and taking a bite out of the apple for the little guy. So
no, you're right. It's not like there's a limited amount of money available through Kickstarter and they're siphoning out that money. It's an unlimited market, so there's always room for more.
Yeah, I don't see it as an ethical question in that sense.
Except that if you're on a limited budget and 5 Kickstarters are out that you want it back, but one of them is the best or looks the best, that might be an argument for Pinnacle coming over the top, and their product looks fantastic, and yet that guy that's trying to create something new, he gets sort of drowned out in the noise.
Well, it's all a matter of timing. Then you shouldn't release yours at the same time as when Pinnacle's releasing Flash Gordon, for example. If you're an indie guy, maybe keep your ear to the ground then.
And here's the thing, that's a good point to bring this up, but I have access to a secret private group for the Savage Worlds licensees, and the main reason why this was created was for the publishers to announce their Kickstarters too, to say, hey, this date I'm going to run a campaign. So maybe if you're the little guy, don't run at the same time as we do, right? Mm-hmm. And they do it. And I've also seen them delay a Kickstarter because one of the licensee was already in there. And they said, okay, we're going to let that guy have his spotlight time, and we're going to run it afterwards. So in that regard, Pinnacle doesn't try to stomp on the little guys at all. They're promoting the licensees too, because it's part of keeping the company healthy, the property healthy, and also what was I going to say? Well, let's just skip that part. Go to the next one.
You're in your special Savage Worlds Club, Mr. Fancy Pants, sipping on wine.
I just and later on there's something asked by Matt Stark about this. So why is there like sometimes 10 to 12 Kickstarters per month? And I just mentioned that group, right? So why does the little guys don't coordinate their Kickstarters better? One thing, not all of them uses that tool to coordinate their Kickstarters. Some of them do market research and find out that, maybe the month of October or March are really good months for Kickstarters. So they want to go and run it that month, or they've waited long enough after other Kickstarters, and now they're ready to run it. Does that hurt them? I don't know. I think that month in October, everybody funded. So does it hurt? I think where it hurts is it's all the spam, right? You're on social media and one more again, and it's onslaught of Kickstarters, right? So
I have a question pertaining to what Paris said about the big guy eating the little guy. on Kickstarter, and I'm going to let you guys mull this over and do the math for me, but is it really any different than walking into a bookstore and having a big company like Peg Inc. with their glossy books and their beautiful artwork and their nice layout, as opposed to the smaller guy that might not have all of that time and effort put into his setting, and you see those 5 books on the bookshelf and you're making your decision as you're standing there looking at these 5 books? As opposed to what you're saying about Kickstarter, where Peg Inc. rolls in and maybe they're taking away the dollar from the lower guy in the totem pole. Do you know what I'm saying? So just compare. Is there a difference? Am I not seeing it? Like Kickstarter is a platform like walking into a bookstore. You have your choices.
Yeah,
or is there a difference?
I suppose it's kind of similar. But we should probably move on. So we've got one from Baby Shaker 666, which is a pretty terrible name, and he says, "Would you back a project where Savage Worlds isn't the only system for it?" So sometimes you get these projects where it'll be like, this is for D&D and Savage Worlds, or this is for ICRPG and Savage Worlds. Would you back it, Gary?
I would more than likely back it for one simple reason. Like, once again, coming from D&D, rules heavy, going to Savage Worlds, rules light, going to ICRPG, even lighter. I think systems that are universal are super light when it comes to rules. You just have to know the idea of the setting. So I wouldn't be stopping myself and flipping through the book looking for a specific Savage Worlds rule or setting, because I think in a system like that, they're just sort of selling you the idea of a setting. Welcome to Fairyland, where magical unicorns squirt out Slurpees, and you know what I mean? There's no sort of mechanics that you need to learn. You're just sort of learning the story behind the setting, kind of a thing, if that makes any sense. Yeah. So yeah, I would.
Okay, yeah. And Paris, how about you?
I've backed a couple that have been cross system, and some I've actually got both of them. Some of them have been really good, like I'm from both sides, like for 5e and for Savage Worlds. Others, though, I found the Savage Worlds version lacking, and by that I mean I didn't get the impression. I get the impression that the person who wrote it was really big on 5e or Pathfinder, but they didn't have their head quite wrapped around Savage Worlds, and so it really was just a setting book. But when you looked at the rules or the rules part of it, it just didn't. There was nothing there, really. So you may as well just, if you're interested in the setting with Savage Worlds, a lot of the times you could just buy it if it was for 5e. You don't need a Savage Worlds version.
Eric?
Well, I did that once with which was a powered by the Apocalypse game. And the publisher wasn't a licensee, so what he had to do was release a conversion document under the fan license. And yeah, I was disappointed. It felt like an afterthought for me. Would I do it again? I would. It depends who did it. If the guy who did it is the same writer who wrote for 5e or whatever, probably not. If it's someone in the Savage Worlds community that knows how it works, like I know Richard Wilcock did the one for Dreckenheim, which was really well done. That I have no problem with it. If that licensee is actually Savage Worlds licensee, and I know he knows his stuff, then yeah. Otherwise, probably not. I think, it's, I don't know. Some people don't have a problem with it. I tend to have a problem with it. I'm not a big fan of that. So
I think when something's written specific for Savage Worlds, it just has a different feel about it than something that's converted over. That'd be the only pause that I have.
That would be the awesome feels, because Savage Worlds is so good.
All right, here's one here from Jordy. My man Jordy. To me, more choice is always better. If there's a under $15 PDF level, I'll get it unless the blurb sounds awful, even if I don't think I'll ever run it, just to see what they did with it. I collect them for the sake of it mostly. I've used less than 33% of Savage World Kickstarters I've bought, I reckon. The only problem I have with some Kickstarter is that they aren't up to the standard I'd expect. And in my eyes, that hurts the game line as a whole, especially if that's someone's only experience of Savage Worlds. Too many Savage Worlds Kickstarters close together is also a different kind of problem. Maybe they should all coordinate better. Yeah, the quality, that's my main problem when you see 10, 12 of them in a month. I think, well, what people need to know, most people come from the D20 era, right, where there were so many of them coming out, and all you had to do was slap the OGL license at the end of the book and you could publish it. I know I mentioned this on the show before, but it works different with Savage Worlds. To have the official licensee logo on your book, you have to go through a process with Pinnacle where you get approved, where you're given that logo that you can use on your book. And what they look at is quality of writing, quality of layout, illustration, and if they have other requirements about the kind of PG level, PG-13, that type of thing. So yeah, if you see a Kickstarter for Savage Worlds and it's an official licensee, that means they were approved. Now we all have different standards when it comes to quality, right? Some of them want books that look like they're made by Fantasy Flight games, and some of them don't really care. They'll take just a white page with text on it and a couple illustrations, and that's fine with them. So I don't know. What are you guys' level of standards?
I think I'd be annoyed if it was a white page with white text. But no, I do have some standards when it comes to Kickstarters and things like this. If it's, I do want to have a professional layout and look to it in terms of like the artwork and the trade dress, because I know it's shallow to an extent, but when you're dropping cash on something, then that's where it needs to be a nice feel and a nice look of a product, nice atmosphere. If it's a free product, I don't care if it's just a white background, black text. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about Kickstarter. So yeah, I do expect some level of quality for my money. And so let's say, for example, if you look at somebody's Kickstarter page and you see, they got bad artwork on there, alarm bells ringing. I'll click off that page. I'll click off that page so fast, but I don't even know what happens. My computer explodes. Was that one that happened recently? I'm not throwing anyone under the bus here, but that one where they had that, like, their logo was like smushed and crushed, and it looked like the sort of stuff I used to do on Paint when I was a child. Do you know what I mean? I'm sure the book is great, but it doesn't give me any confidence when it comes to trade dress that you couldn't properly resize a logo for your Kickstarter.
Yeah, we'll bleep out the name of that, but yeah.
Okay, yeah, fine, bleep the name, but like, I just, for me, that I was like, okay, cool, that is like really, really unprofessional. And so I think that there are definitely certain standards that I will want to be met. How about you guys?
Yeah, there's artwork's very important to me, because it probably gives me more of a sense of what the author is trying to tell me about their world than the words. And speaking of art, I don't know if it's cheaper, but anytime I've bought a book and it's come with digital art instead of like an artist sitting down drawing, I'm talking about like computer generated art. I don't know if it's it looks odd to me. It looks wrong. I don't know what it is about it, but that turns me off. So any Kickstarter creators out there, don't use that art. It's horrible. One thing though, just as a quick side denim, is everyone keeps saying this is money that I put down and I'm expecting a product back. That isn't really what Kickstarter is. Kickstarter is this guy has an idea or a product or whatever. I'm going to back them, but you should understand that you may not get anything, right? You're not actually buying something. You're supporting someone's creation. And they're saying that if you pledge, I'm hoping that I can give you this back.
While I do understand that, it's still sort of you are still expecting it though, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. But I mean, and the majority of Kickstarters do pay up, at least in the role playing side and that. But just there seems to be this underlying thread that, and I've been burnt on Kickstarters. But the thing is, this is a lot of those smaller projects. This is about supporting an indie guy, and they may not make it. Don't get butthurt if they don't. Basically, that's sort of the mindset you got to go with. But
I do get butthurt.
Yeah, true.
I feel like Jordy is speaking to me on a certain level that me and only Jordy would understand, because I do the same thing. And I agree, man. More choice is better, not just for me, but for everybody. Because some settings aren't going to be for me. Maybe they're for somebody else. And if there's a $15 PDF, like he says, I'll buy it, even if I never run it, just to sort of check it out, maybe pull an idea. Maybe that's what I'm looking at. I'm like, oh, kittens in space or something cool. That might be something that one day when I retire and actually have some free time, I would run. The whole Kickstarter thing too is like, I agree with what you're saying, Paris, but I haven't really been burnt that many. I've 1 out of 48. So right now, what is that? If you double it, it's 96. So I have a 96% success rate on my Kickstarters. And I agree with what you're saying. Like, I don't expect something, but fortunately, I've never really been burned. I will say one thing too. Now that I remember what we were talking about there, art sells. I've said it before. When I was a kid, the first thing I look at is the art. So I think that they know that, because they know all sorts of stuff, like they being the government, secret conspiracies that are like secretly tapping your computer and checking out the fact that you're probably watching some kind of weird hentai porn. That's not me, by the way. But they know these things, right? They know how to get your money. They know how to get your dollar bills. And if some company, like say I was going to put out a Kickstarter, that would be where the majority of my money would go. Not into the actual writing some quality content, because I'm not a writer, but into making that initial artwork that I'm showing the world sucker you into buying my junk. That's what I'm saying. That's what I feel like. They know that stuff. So I wouldn't rely on art, but I don't really rely on anything. Here's the thing too, like when you see Kickstarter pages and stuff like that, I just generally look at the idea, like what's happening here. Fear Agent spoke to me because I was thinking space. Adventures in Space kind of has a sort of an easy idea where you're going to play an exterminator, and away you go. The artwork was cool. The blues and the oranges really was kind of like colors that went together. They did a good job on that. I read the comics. I thought great idea. But my point is like, how is it any different than walking into a bookstore once again and just picking up a module and looking at it and just flipping through the pages? You don't really get anything more when you go to a store to buy the book than you do looking at a Kickstarter page, because you're not sitting in the bookstore reading the entire thing. You're just flipping through it, taking your first guess, which is why I'm saying artwork sells. Does that make sense? Or am I just
actually getting more looking at a Kickstarter page? Usually you get some, if it's written properly, if it's written well, you get a feel for the people that are creating it. You get a feel for the philosophy behind it and how much they're really invested in getting this project. How much this project is important to them to get it finished.
You often get like a rubbish video where they've just made the artwork move.
Yeah. They should start a Kickstarter so that they can make a video for their Kickstarter.
Yeah.
I'm going to rinse the fan out of this and put a couple of check marks on Kickstarter as opposed to the bookstore for Kickstarter winning. There are too many Kickstarters. Shut up, fat cat, dead rat, you jerk. There's no such thing. And too many people who are getting licensed to produce items with little content and low quality. Are they getting licensed, Eric? We'll go over that in a second here. I cannot speak for all Savage Worlds Kickstarters, but I may see show little promise.
Many.
Many. There you go. Thanks, pal. Many that I see show little promise. I feel the quality of writing and art shown do not stand up to the rigid requirements that Pinnacle claims to have had. After backing Goon just to get all the bonus material, I never played it, and at this point, I don't plan to. I don't think that Goon was a bad product. It just lacked content and didn't spark the fire that Rifts did. Right on, bro. I take back what I said about you poorly a second ago, because you're a Rifts fan. Since then, I won't even think of backing another Savage Worlds project. Ooh, that's a little stiff. With a new edition on the way, I question if this is intentional flooding of the market before changes make much of the material useless. Good valid points in there. The license thing, Eric. Let's go back to that. Do you have to be licensed to make a Kickstarter, or can you kickstart something that just says Savage Worlds fan on it?
No, because you can't make money out of the fan license. So you could offer it to the backers as a add-on for free, but you can't get up front there and say it's a fan license Savage Worlds setting.
Although,
how do you feel, Lamoureux?
What's that?
I said, how do you feel about his Goon comment?
No comment. I already had a rant on that, so.
Yeah. Well, just in case he didn't listen to that episode, I think Fat Cat Dead Rat, he's all on board with what you said about Goon. I think Lamoureux went all in on that, and I think he kind of got burned too, and never played it and probably won't ever.
As for the new edition part, nothing will be rendered useless after the new edition. They did the same thing when Deluxe came out, and they had a free PDF that you could get on their site, which gave you all the new changes, the new rules, and all that. So you don't even need to buy the new book to be able to play it. You can just get that type of errata document, and you'll have all the changes. So I'd be very, very surprised if they changed so much that all your previous books, your library, you can't use it. I mean, we went over this during the Savage Black episodes anyway. It looks like Fat Cat Dead Rat doesn't feel like they're up to standards, and I would tend to agree on some of them, but then again, they were approved by Pinnacle, so they at least meet Pinnacle's standards. So you can't really argue that. If Pinnacle gives you the license, that means you're good enough in their eyes.
Yeah, there's and things like of them. Yeah, they all meet the standards.
It's like I said earlier, man. Looks clean, smells clean. Put them on.
Yep. But we got one in next from Christian Serrano. He says, one issue I have with Kickstarter is throwing money at something before seeing it. Some publishers are solid. Others, I struggle with the end result, especially with bad layout. That's another reason why I've been reserved with backing things lately. Actually, I feel like his email wasn't quite as angry as I made it.
Is that your Grognard voice?
That's my Christian Serrano voice. That's how he sounds.
Dude, have you heard Christian Serrano? He has like the sexiest voice on podcasting.
Okay, do you want me to do a sexy voice?
Yes, do a sexy voice.
One issue that I have with Kickstarter is throwing money
All
at
right,
something.
stop that.
Okay, sorry.
Stop it.
That was my best
Get so
attempt.
excited, please stop.
So throwing
Bad
money,
layout.
throwing money at something before seeing it. Some have bad layout. What do you reckon?
Yeah, well, that's the whole point, right? A Kickstarter is it's a promise that they'll deliver, and Paris explained that part. That's the nature of Kickstarter.
One of the things that the Savage Tokusatsu thingy did was that when they went on to Kickstarter, one of the things that they said was they wanted to improve their layout using the money, and I think that was quite a good thing to do, because they sort of looked at the original one and went, okay, we're not that happy with this, so what we're going to do with the cashish is we're going to make it better. And I quite like that. So maybe if you have a Kickstarter and you've got a book and your layout's rubbish, improve it.
Yeah, it's kind of a general statement. One issue I have with Kickstarter is throwing money at something before seeing it.
The next part comes together with another one from Thomas Allison. He says, I don't really care for this new trend of game publishers using crowdfunding. I'm seeing a day very soon when board games and RPGs will only be available to crowdfunders and will disappear from retail shelves totally. And Shane Hensley replies, that's the point, Thomas. They already did long ago. I travel all over the country and I see where our sales come from, even before Kickstarter. And we just don't make it onto most store shelves, especially given the broad nature of Savage Worlds. So you go where the channel is. So maybe that's the reality of the market now, where the little stores are dying, at least for hobby, and we just use Kickstarters now.
But then
it's kind of the nature for everything, isn't it? Like, if you think about it, look at Amazon. That guy, whatever his name is, I can't remember, and I should, because he's been in the news all the time here recently with Trump attacking the dudester. But look at Amazon, and I'll tell you why Amazon is a beautiful thing. Amazon to me is like walking into a store. I need a screwdriver, or let's say I need like a shank buckle or something, and you guys are like, what's a shank buckle? I just made it up. Here's the beauty of it. You can go to Canadian Tire, which is a local store, and I can walk in and I can walk around the store for a freaking hour looking for a shank buckle. Or I can go to Amazon, and it's like walking into a store. Somebody comes up and says, here's every shank buckle we have in the entire world. Which one would you like? That's what Kickstarter is like. I can go to one place and I can see what's being offered, and I can roll through the offerings without having to go to each individual gaming store and say, hey, like yesterday, I was looking, actually, Harrison, I'll tell you, I was looking for the Horror Companion to see if my store had it yesterday, because when my ICRPG comes, I was going to send you that and the Horror Companion. They didn't have it, though, but I did look for you yesterday to see if my bookstore had it, and they don't.
That's very
you know,
you
see what I'm saying? So Kickstarter for me is top notch, man. It's like I don't have to go look for stuff. I can just go to Kickstarter and see everything that's available. So I don't know. That's my two shakes.
I do agree, but then it's also not just the crowdfunding, but I like buying stuff off Amazon and things like this rather than crowdfunding websites, because it exists. Yeah, it's not available for a limited amount of time. And like Eric said, it exists, and it's just you can just buy it right now and just get it in a week.
Do they have Amazon in Australia, Paris?
No, they don't.
Yeah, ours has just opened up, and it's crap compared to the American one.
He's lying.
I don't know anyone that uses it, just because we can't. We all thought we'd be able to access the stuff from Amazon that we couldn't normally get, because it keeps going, we don't ship to your country for quite a lot of products, and none of them are there, so we don't care. But that point that Shane makes is actually it's very interesting, because if you look at your friendly local game stores today, or even your bookstores, they have narrowed their catalog quite a lot. They just can't afford to keep titles that are niche, I guess is the best word. And a lot of the friendly local game stores, they make their money on game cards, Magic the Gathering and stuff like that. Role-playing, at least here in Australia, role-playing games take up a very small part. And if I wanted to buy Savage Worlds, the rules in a book here in Victoria, and I had to go to Melbourne, and even then I don't think I saw one on the shelf. So I had to order mine from Amazon America to get mine. So that may have changed, it may have increased, but I know that Savage Worlds is not a big role-playing system here yet. We're working on it. And Kickstarter gives you that opportunity to address a very niche market, but on a worldwide scale. So you can still create your product and not have too much of a risk to yourself, and that way it can still come out. So many game stores went broke because they tried to buy everything that was on the market. No one bought it, and then they tried, they couldn't even sell it in their bargain bins because it was so niche that you needed, enough people to buy it. And as I said, we've, West End Games, Game Designs Workshop, on and on and on the list of game companies that no longer exist. Whereas if they had Kickstarter back then, you know, they might still be around today. In fact, I would argue that without Kickstarter, our hobby wouldn't be as big as it is today. I think Kickstarter, because my generation that remembers all the old games, and we've now got jobs and all the rest of it, we jumped on Kickstarter. And oh my God, that game! Like, what did I back? Alternity. I backed Alternity the other day. There's going to redo of that. Paranoia. Whole bunch of games that I remember when I was, you know, in my youth, and I'm like, oh yeah, they're coming back. I think Kickstarter has rejuvenated our hobby quite considerably.
I agree. Here's a couple of things. Amazon is to Kickstarter is to Steam. There's sort of three of the similar platforms. Amazon sells you your household good junks, anything you want you can get from Amazon, computer parts, automotive parts, kitchen gadgets, whatever, right? Kickstarter will sell you, anything that people want to create, and it's a single platform that you can go to. But Steam is actually probably a more closer example to what Kickstarter is. And here's the beauty of it. Like, Steam has these little indie games that come out. I don't know if you guys have ever seen or played Terraria, but when Terraria came out, nobody would have ever seen that game. But you put it on Steam, and 1 billion people have eyeballs on it all of a sudden. Like, it is a good platform for people that want to create something. Sure, there's not, they can't all be diamonds, but you know what I mean? So it's right. I'm on board, man. I'm gonna kiss a little Kickstarter's butthole today, I think, now that I think about it.
Just a real quick question. Do you guys use Indiegogo?
No.
Yeah, I have.
I've only used it once, and that was for the new Beasts and Barbarians, and I got quite a shock when I had to pay for it up front.
Well, that's just how these Grammel set it up. It's a choice that you make. Yeah, you can do the same with Kickstarter, I think, to pay up front instead of paying at the end of the campaign. So it's just how they chose to do it.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I was a little curious there, because as soon as Kickstarter funds, they take your money. But you're saying as soon as you donate to Indiegogo, whether funds or not, yeah, they take your money. I got you. Yeah,
well, that's just one way, because Mornay did the same for Winter Eternal, and I think it only charged at the end of the campaign. So it's a choice you make when you launched a campaign, and that's a choice that Grammel did. And that's a good point. I mean, we say Kickstarter, but there are other platforms out there. Indiegogo, I think there's Verkami, something like that. And to an extent, Patreon is a sort of crowdfunding too. So I've only had good experiences with Indiegogo, actually, better than Kickstarter, that actually approved a project that was called Winter Eternal, when they're supposed to double check copyright and that sort of thing. So some other dude, 2 years after the release of Winter Eternal, the setting for Savage Worlds, there's a project that was called Winter Eternal from another publisher, and that was approved by Kickstarter. So that's cool. My bad experience.
I backed it.
That's right.
It's better than the first one.
And they seem to be arbitrary with their some of their policies on Kickstarter. I mean, I know some publishers have had bad experiences with them. We had Charles White on the show talking about this, mainly because it's the biggest one, the most popular one. But yeah, Indiegogo works quite well, actually. I like their features.
Yeah, Patreon is another one that we didn't really mention. It allows people that may not have access to a worldwide stage to get on there and do stuff. I'm all for those platforms. I'm all for Kickstarter, Amazon, Steam, Patreon, you name it. That I'm for that idea.
It's interesting you brought up Patreon, because how many people sponsor Patreon expecting to get something in return? Right. So take, for instance, the Wild Die podcast, right? I don't have to sponsor you guys. I don't sponsor you guys thinking it's because I get a podcast in return. I just like what you guys do.
That's a good point.
And I don't want you to leave. So I pledge every month, whatever I pledge, which I'm going to cancel now because you've been addicted to me. But
You deserve it, though. You should pay more because you've been a dick to me.
Pay more. That's why, because I'm in Australia.
Yeah.
You should, because we let you on the show.
Exactly.
Hey, hang on. It's like paying to go to work. Wait a minute. So we've got this idea of crowdfunding on one side with Patreon, which is like we're supporting the artist. We're not expecting anything back, but happy days if we get something. And yet we get all butthurt if Kickstarter doesn't fulfill its promise.
Well, the only thing is that with that, I guess, often, not always, but often with Patreon, you're expecting no reward, but you're supporting somebody just to do what they do, but you can retract that at any time. So if you feel like what they're doing is no longer worth your money, you just take it back. And this is what I see with my other podcasts constantly is people taking their money away because they're not going to need it. But
I understand what you guys mean, that you're getting something for, or you're not getting anything when you donate to a Patreon. Like when you donate to it with the Wild Eye, you're paying for the content that we create, which is very time consuming. It may not be good, and we do give it away for free. So like your contributions, the people that contribute to the Patreon page are super valued for one reason. They're letting us know that they appreciate the stuff that we do because they can have it for free. But the majority of the Patreons that I support, they do offer stuff like Zovia's maps, Blue Sword Games does maps. My favorite one, which is Printable Heroes. He makes little miniatures, like paper miniatures and stuff, and you know what I mean. Like I'm always getting something for my money, even this Wild Eye podcast that I even donate to, I get the podcast out of the deal.
We've I know we're straying off topic here, but I'm just gonna do a bit of self promotion here because on my anime podcast, Teach Me Senpai, which everyone should listen to. We've got like little reward tiers on there, right? So if you pay $25 a month, you can suggest punishments that I will do on my brother whenever he messes up in that podcast. And he does often. I mean, previously he's had to drink vinegar and I've shot him with a BB gun. So there is that.
How much is it for him to do something to you?
That's not on there because I set up the Patreon.
Maybe you need to rethink your rewards.
You could retire.
How far are you willing to go for $25? Can I suggest that he drinks gas, and I mean like a lot of gas, and then you light him on fire and wait till he explodes for $25?
The thing about it is that all it says on there is that you can suggest whatever punishment, and we'll probably do it. So yeah, okay. I will kill him. I will kill him for $25.
So your Patreon is Jackass.
Yeah, basically.
Kind of. Yeah, I mean, but
with an anime theme.
With an anime theme, yes.
And British.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, but anyway, speaking of Kickstarters for Savage Worlds.
Yeah, let's. Let's conclude this a little bit. I will say this for me as a fan, as a customer. When I go to a Kickstarter page, I will look at the text. Typos, one or two, it's okay. English isn't my best, but if the grammar is poor, if the layout of your Kickstarter page is bad, if you've put bad artwork on there, to me that sends a signal that the final product I'm going to get is going to be on par with what you presented to me. It's about first impressions, right? And I totally understand that when you go to crowdfunding like this, it's because you don't have the money right now to produce something decent looking. But you know, there's such a thing as networking, making friends in the industry, other indie publishers that will lend you a hand for a favor or for a very small fee to help you make your page look good. And that's another point, too. I mean, the one thing that bugs me when I see that many Kickstarters for a month is that you see some people that just come out of nowhere that nobody has heard about, that never took the time to mingle with the crowd, the community on Facebook or G Plus or whatever to make their product known, show some previews, that type of thing. And yes, I know that was the case with Mornay with Just Insert Imagination when he came out with Winter Eternal. He came out of nowhere, but there was like a 6 months period leading up to his Indiegogo campaign where he shared artwork, he shared part of the text, he shared previews of what he was doing, and interacted with the people. That's how I met him. That's how I became friends with it. And I think you're shooting yourself in the foot a little bit if you just come out of nowhere and shove that project in people's faces and say, give me money. It's just me. It might be mean. It might be shallow of me to think that way, but I like to think that that's the side of me as a publisher now, that I like to mingle with the crowd, talk to the people, and share previews of what I'm doing before I ask people to give me money up front, because that's what it comes down to, right? You're asking for money to fund your project. So I think as a customer now, I have the right to be as picky as I want because that's my money. So if you don't leave a good impression, I'm probably not going to back your project. That's as simple as that.
Eric, I feel the same way about the local homeless people. Don't just walk up and hold your hand out and say, give me money. Dance for me a little bit. Maybe tell me a story. Ask me how my day was. Why'd I just got to reach in my pocket and give you my change, man? I don't know you. You could say, hey, mister, how you doing today? How are you feeling? Maybe a little, psychotherapy while I'm walking into 7-Eleven to get some coffee or something. I agree.
I like that.
Anyway, the way I feel about Kickstarter, to conclude, is that ultimately, similarly to Eric, I think it is all about first impressions to an extent. And I once saw a Kickstarter for a Savage Worlds product that had a video on it that was following up to a previous failed Kickstarter that they'd done, and the video literally was the person saying, "Hello everyone, I hope this video isn't as annoying as the last one." It's stuff like that, don't do things like that, and then maybe I'll take a look at your page. And as Gary said, nice bit of artwork on the front, good descriptions down below, and I'm yours. Maybe buy me a drink too.
Yeah, and I mean, also, of course, the setting has to be, or the product needs to be appealing to me. Some of them I know I'm never going to use, and it's not really my cup of tea, so I'm not gonna back it. But if the setting sounds interesting, there's good presentation there, and also if I know who you are, if I have some samples of your work somewhere else, a free one sheet or something like that, a demo kit that's been popular lately. That's one of the reasons why we had a Titan Effect. Their demo kit was the bomb. It was so good, and just seeing that, I'm like, I'm sold. These guys do outstanding work, and I want to support them. But then again, I see some of them that are, I'm not sure I'm gonna get my money's worth out of that. So, yeah. What about you, Paris?
I guess I come from more of a consumer background than let's say you, when you're looking at layouts and stuff like that. So for me, the idea's really got to catch me. Just adjusting something a little bit from that's already out there, that's not enough for a Kickstarter, man. That's, we can all do that. So something that's unique, something that don't overextend. I get worried by Kickstarters that got like 57 billion pledge levels, and you generate, and then I start getting worried about whether they can bring it all out. And we've seen that happen with some Savage World products where they didn't fulfill, even though they got all the funding, they didn't fulfill it. Art's very important because we really pick up so much of your setting with our eyes. So I'd recommend, if you want us to back your product, invest some of your own money in that artist that you're excited about, and at least commission one piece of art and have it sitting there and say, look, I'm going to employ this guy. You give me the money, or this girl, and my book will have this in it. These guys, right? And so that to me goes, all right, I understand he's got a product, he's got a plan, or she has got a plan, and I'll be happy to back that. But that goes across all Kickstarters. With Savage Worlds specifically, yeah, I've got to get the feel that, and I know I bang on about Savage World philosophy a lot, but I've got to get the feel that whoever's writing it is not just trying to pump out another book because they got to, and then put Savage Worlds on it, that they really have grasped what Savage Worlds is about, how it's played, and how that genre that they're presenting with Savage Worlds is really going to work. That's what I'm looking for.
Gary?
Okay. I don't know where to start with this because on so many levels I agree with Paris. But I listen to enough science and skeptical podcasts that I know enough about the human brain to know exactly what's going on. Artwork, for sure. This is so Paris is right. When you look at something, it's all about presentation, but they know that. That's what I'm saying. So when I look at something, that's what I'm looking at because I know exactly that's what they're shooting for. If it's got a nice presentation and an idea that I think that I could probably easily run, I'm probably going to throw my money at it, and you're going to get me, whether it's good or not. I agree with what Paris is saying. Like I just feel that the art sells. We know it. We know how our brains work as consumers, man. When you walk in and look at 17 toasters, my wife does this all the time. She'll look at the one that's the prettiest. It also happens to be the most expensive and probably the one that's going to break in a month. But presentation is everything, right? So that's just what I look for. I'm just going to admit it. Whether it's good or not, if it looks nice, I'm buying it.
Well, that was what got us into the Darkhold Goblin Adventures thing, was how cool the cover was, and it was genuinely awesome, and then it was lucky that the inside of it was so cool as well, and I absolutely love that book. But one of the things that made it so appealing to begin with was how awesome the cover was, and it like Gary said, art sells, and I think that is amazing. So that setting that I mentioned earlier, when they had that squished up logo right at the front of it, I literally took one look at the page and then clicked off it because I was just like, nope.
Yep, it's true. So hopefully some of those publishers are listening, and I mean, they should. It's part of the market research for your project. So if it did not fund, maybe you'll find some interesting tidbits in there, and you'll do better next time. I mean, like I said, we understand that the reason why you're asking for money is that you don't have the money for the artwork right now. But I don't know, maybe work a couple weekends overtime, or get a second job for a little bit so you can afford an illustration or two to present for your Kickstarter or something, because it makes a big difference on how it's going to do, I think. At least for me, like Harrison said, if you got a bad presentation, I'm clicking that X on my web browser right there.
Going straight back to your hentai websites.
Yep. All right, let's wrap this up.
Yo, motherfuckers, you all best back up. I always got a gun, I always come strap up. This ain't a game of pool, it ain't no time for no rack up. It's the motherfucking time for the motherfucking wrap up. Anyone who disagrees will get smack up. See me back in school when I shouldn't have learned to add up. Found a gun on the floor, instead I picked that up. Anyway, sorry, I'm motherfucking back up. What I'm trying to say is it's time for the wrap up. Yeah, this one goes out to all the ladies and all the men out there. Everyone in the front row, grease up.
You can email us at thewildeye@gmail.com. Get us on Google+, YouTubes, and Facebooks at The Wild Eye Podcast. Check us out on the Nerds International community, where we mostly hang out, the G+ Nerds International community. Eric's there all the time, trying to pawn his wares. If that's the place you're looking to catch somebody, that's where you want to go to. You can get Eric at The Wild Eye on Twitter. He's also there once in a while, making snide comments and saying rude things to people. I'm surprised he hasn't got beat up before. And donate to us on Patreon at the patreon.com/thewildeye. You can throw us a few shekels for this extremely valuable entertainment that we do. And then we can afford to pay Paris to keep coming back and get rid of that slouch Manuel.
That's right. His ties are expensive, so happens. All right, time for the little Patreon jingle. Jingle, jingle.
The Wild Eye Podcast would like to thank the following people. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sean Richer, Conrad Erasmus Neuburn, Zovia, Rob Tau, Peter Adams, John Peterson, Manuel Sands, Mr. Slags, Jason Connolly, Gus Buskill, Dashard, Andy Hall, Tony Asmodeus, Owen Lee, James Clark, Perry Chalmers, David, Eli Kurtz, Matthew Hansen, Murder Hobo Show, John Steve Pure, Mongrel Sergio Benito, Bubbles, yeah, and that is everyone. Looks like I'm done. However, here's a bonus freestyle. Yo, the other day I was walking down the street. I saw a goblin coming towards me with his little feet. And I just... Oh, shit. The grognard's back.
Too many Kickstarters. Back in the day, this place in D&D. Thank you for listening. I know maybe this episode was a bit all over the place, but I guess you get our feelings or opinion about the Kickstarters and the opinion of many listeners too, obviously. So, yeah, thank you. And this is Eric saying, grab your sword by the balls.
Oh, sorry, I was yawning. This is Harrison saying, grapple the skies.
This is this is Paris saying, don't believe the lie. England didn't send their convicts here. All the cool people left.
Wow, those are my words, dude. Wow. This is Gary saying, you get what you pay for, man. Keep your pants on. Keep it fun. Thanks, everyone. We're out.
Wild Eye Podcast is not affiliated with or endorsed by Pinnacle Entertainment Group or official Pinnacle licensees. Any of the products mentioned on our show or appear on our website are the property and copyright of the respected owners. All music and artwork is used with permission of Pinnacle Entertainment Group. All items are used under fair use and educational and review purposes. All other items are the intellectual property of the Wild Eye Podcast.
Eric, my name is Harry Peters. I am from Sac.
Or cul-de-sac.
Whatever.
You know that means butt of the bag, right?
Oh, does it really?
Yeah.
Well,
Wow.
cul-de-sac.
I live in a cul-de-sac. I live in a butt of a bag. Wow.
Yeah. Cul in French is ass.
Oh, yeah.